Kunjani peeps, ek hoop julle het almal 'n lekker Saterdag. Dis 'n heerlike dag in die Kaap. Ons is besig om te prep vir 'n bietjie Springbok rugby. So ja, it's gonna be a good day. Guys, as an intro to this episode, I would like to just say that this is quite an emotional one for me, because I feel that this one will expose pretty much a lot of the injustice, or the sort of thinking in terms of injustices that can be done. And this one hits close to home. And I think it's purely because the business is still open and operating, and and you'll see why I feel we're fairly passionate about it. So disclaimer on this one, there might be a little bit of swearing and I might get a bit passionate in talking, but yeah, I'm going to take you through a series of emails and communications, WhatsApps between ourselves, landlords and franchisors. I think this episode I'm going to call Hijacked or Caretaking. And I'm going to let you be the judge of that, our listeners and watchers out there. Okay, guys, so just to start off in this episode, I had some questions around the previous episode around licensed items, and if these things are written into the franchise agreement, specifically because if we take it back now, it sort of seems that our arguments with Mozambique centers around, or started with profitability in the distribution and them wanting us to buy, and we're not complying to that. And that's basically where it started going wrong. So we need to understand licensed items and what the effect of this is on a business like distribution. Licensed items are things which you carry the trademark to, the patent to, which, let's for instance say I've developed a recipe, the intellectual property of that recipe, I take that and I trademark it and patent it, and that then becomes my IP, which is intellectual property, and I can then on-sell that as licensed item. Typically what I can't do is take lettuce or tomatoes and say that is a licensed item. Meat cannot be a licensed item. If you are selling 200 gram steaks and somebody else is selling 200 gram steaks, you can't license that item. So just to give you guys clarity on that is that, and you'll understand now, you'll get to know the people and the characters. So Richard Key works for head office, and he is an operational manager. So he looks after our stores, gives us input, advises on what we do right and what we do wrong. But he also acts on behalf of the distribution center. So he speaks directly to franchisees in terms of what is purchased and not from the distribution center. And one of our arguments, or you could see out of my previous episode, the 7 November email, that I didn't regard Richard quite high on the agenda. I disagreed with his appointment. I disagreed with a few things there, and that obviously sparked a bit of reaction. But as you'll come to see in this episode, it actually made quite sense. But all right, so Richard Key acts on behalf of distribution, and he sends us a WhatsApp to say that, what happened was that we see that Mozambique distribution tells all the franchisees that they now have a new butchery supplier in Cape Town, and we should be using these guys, or we shouldn't be using these guys, we should be buying from distribution our steaks or our meat products, not just our steaks. And we go, hold on a second, and then they advise us that we cannot buy from our supplier any longer. I am not going to, I don't know if I should mention his name, he's a great guy. Really an awesome business to deal with. So if you've got a restaurant, I think I can mention his name, because I mean he's so the company's called Nam Deli, and they are in Cape Town. So if you run a restaurant or something like that, maybe support the dude. He actually stood for what was right. Any case, so we get told we need to buy from distribution. We can't buy from Nam Deli any longer. And we go, hold on, this is a relationship that we've established. You know, we've been dealing with Nam Deli for a number of years in a number of stores, and solid relationship with the guys. Now you come to us and you say that we can't buy from them, we need to buy their product from you. And we go, nah. So we just ignore it. I didn't spend time on it. Friedel didn't spend time on it. She mentioned it, and I was like, you know what? That it's not a licensed item. Just keep on buying from who you're buying. And she obviously does. And we get a day where Nam Deli is supposed to deliver to us, and we get Mr. Richard Key on the ringer saying that we can consider ourselves lucky that he allowed that delivery to be delivered to us for the day. And that he has taken it upon himself to cancel all our deliveries from Nam Deli going forward, and that distribution will be supplying that. And we go, no. And Friedel goes, not a fork. And she puts it on a public group. So you can imagine it ruffled a few feathers. Anywho's, so let's move on from there. I will do an episode on math behind these businesses to give you an idea of the rand and cent figures we're talking about, guys. It's not small money. We're talking about serious money. Yeah, so sorry, I've got a little paper from today on, because apparently I get sidetracked. Wow. Who would have told? Okay, so one of the things, and this is going to be the closing one on the distribution center, is that, and you see, this is the reality of it, is that not all of us in life are stupid people. Some of us actually have been around the block 1,000,006 times. There are people out there that really work their asses off from the floor up and trying to make a living and just getting it done. So never ever underestimate who you're dealing with. And that goes to pretty much anybody and everybody out there. Is we need to respect people that we deal with every day, because you don't know what experience or where this person comes from. So just, have the common courtesy of respect, and treat them as an equal. So at one stage, Brett and I had this massive argument about pricing from distribution and we needing to buy from them. And, it was always a thing of, I can't force you to buy from, or later days it became that, after we put our foot down and said no, it became a thing of, I can't force you to do that. I can't force you to buy from distribution, but if you don't like it, I might up the price on some of your licensed items. And I'm like, okay, so this was my argument from the beginning. And guys, back in my day, I also owned a distribution business, so I pretty much sort of understand the math behind it. Is that you don't fight with your client on the front end. Me being the client of the Mozambique Distribution Center, the fight shouldn't be with me. The fight should be with where you are purchasing your product from. If a company like Sustainable Foods can be cheaper on seafood than what you can supply to me from a distribution point, it means that your negotiation skills suck and theirs are better than yours. Because yes, there might be a difference in prawn, but C5 calamari that I get from distribution and that I get from Sustainable, or from Lumar Foods for that matter, is the same thing. And I'm paying less for it. Why should we have this argument? You should be fighting at the back end, not me. Anyhow, that's distribution for you. Okay, so now, let's get back to Mr. Richard and Mrs. Gillian Key. Guys, I'm going to say it as it is. I don't dislike a lot of people in life, but I dislike these people. Unfortunately, I have to say that, and I will tell you where it comes from. First time I met with Richard and Gillian Key was when they tried to sell me in One City, which was their brand store in One City Mall. Brett phoned me up and said he's got these friends that want to get rid of their store because the gentleman is moving out of South Africa, if I would be interested in going to have a look. So yes, at that stage we were still in the phase, I was pretty much in the phase of starting to slam brakes on opening new stores and just getting the sort of shit show that we've got going on stabilized. So get approached to open in One City. I take a drive out there. I go and sit with the owners, Richard and Gillian Key, and I look at the store and I get the selling price, and the selling price is ridiculously low. So I ask a few questions, I get a few answers, and I realize this is just not going to work. The store's not making the sort of turnover that it should. There's a spur across the alleyway that's killing the market in that center, and I was like, I don't think it's going to work. So eventually I said no. Then they approached another franchisee. He said no. Same story. The short version is that was where I met Richard and Gillian Key. Eventually they open up in One City. So they are the franchisees at Mozambique in One City. Their store continues trading, but really not great. And I'm sorry to put it out there, but the store wasn't making great money. I mean, it is what it is. And I feel sorry for Richard and Gillian about that, because the store was never supposed to be opened. So as the due diligence processes from head office failed a lot of other people, it also failed you guys. But unfortunately, you chose to fucking continue on the wrong road. You know, it's like hitting rock bottom and then starting to dig. That's not the way to do it, guys. Okay. Owners at in One City. Richard gets appointed as the head of the franchise committee for the Western Cape. So what the fuck ever that means. But we're supposed to talk to him, and he is supposed to then go and speak to head office on our behalf. Hang 10 there, I need to get a glass of water, my mouth is drying up. Fuck. Cheers. Okay. So we've now established that Richard Key works for Mozambique head office as, well, fuck, let's start. He's a Mozambique franchisee. He gets appointed as the smallest franchisee probably in the group. Well, not probably. I think there's guys that had worse off, but as a very small franchisee in the group, he gets appointed to represent all of the franchisees from the Western Cape. From there, he gets appointed to head office as an operations manager, well, the head of the operations for Western Cape, which means that Richard has got pretty much every piece of information available to him about every piece of business that he now looks after. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Now let's fast forward, guys, and I'm going to sort of skip the process how we got to that date, because it's quite lengthy and it's actually just a bit of paperwork in between, but I'm going to highlight the important parts. There was a dispute, as I told you before, there was a dispute over franchise fees. This dispute, the letter of demand got delivered to the landlord at the Colosseum Hotel instead of to us. The landlord receives this and sets up a meeting with me. And in this meeting, and this is the highlights of this meeting, and Mr. Brian Singer, if you can challenge me on this, please do. I'm waiting for you as well to challenge me, because you are as guilty as the guys from Mozambique, because both of you looked after your own interests before considering what is good and healthy business, and how does your interests and dealing with your interests in the way that you did, how does that affect people outside? There's a family behind that business, Brian, same as what you've got a family. There's a family behind the business, Mozambique directors, same as what you've got. So, Brian, you asked me in that meeting that you hope we could still walk or still see each other in the street and greet each other, and I agreed to that. After this, I highly, highly doubt that that's possible. Anywho, I get called to a meeting by Brian. I already knew what this meeting is about because I know that that letter of demand was delivered to them and instead of delivered to us. Anywho's, so I get there. Brian opens the meeting by reminding me that we are up to date on our rentals. He reminds me that it's nothing to do with me or Friedel, but he does feel that there is a brand mismatch between Mozambique and the hotel. Okay. The brand mismatch has been discussed before. I know about it. We've talked about it. I've seen what it's about. Done. My answer back in previous meetings about this was that I'm still in contract with Mozambique. There's nothing much I can do about it. Now I'm sitting there and I'm saying, Brian, I get it. And he says to me, if I would mind if he offers the site to other brands out there, because he feels that if he needs to make a change, that he rather needs to do it sooner rather than later. And I said, Brian, you know what? If you want to offer the site to somebody else, there's nothing I can do to stop you. But I would agree to an early exit if it makes sense to us. Guys, bear in mind, our lease agreement was until February 2026 for the initial period with 5 years after that. Okay. So, now we are having this discussion and I say to Brian, I don't have a problem if you're not happy with Mozambique as a brand. There's nothing much I can do about that. What I can do is I can say, if you want to change the brand, do it. So Brian offers to me and he says, would we be willing to look at doing it with another brand? And I said, I'm not going to be interested in doing that because the site is not making enough profit for us to do that. So we've been there now. We've seen what it does. We know what the pitfalls are. Should I go and spend the money again on another brand? And I decided not to do it because, guys, the reality is, if we have to rebrand that store, it's going to have to be at 5 million rand, 5 to 6 million rand, depending on what else gets done. If that low, if we're looking at, let me look for my calculator, my infamous little calculator. Oh my word. I don't know. Let's see if we can figure this out. No. Okay, so Century City store, let's say it is at 15,000 rand a square meter, 7.5 million to rebuild that store as a new brand, whatever it's going to be. And I said, no, it's not going to make sense. It's more than a 5-year investment. We're just at a point now where the 5-year investment has been repaid, and we now want to go and do it again. And for this time around, it's going to not take 5 years to pay it. It's going to take us almost 10 years. So no. And it's pretty much, this is where, okay, so Brian then says to me that I need to just keep in mind, we owe them 2.3 million rand for electricity. And I go, oh, okay, nice, but no, I don't agree with the figure. We had an agreement around the payment for the electricity, which I completely agree with. I disagreed with the figure because it's not measured and it's not metered. It needs to be measured and metered. That's not how it works. So yes, if it's your responsibility, if you are the landlord, to send me these things in due time and get it sorted out. In 5 years, you never measured, metered, or did anything, and then you decide, now this is going to be the day, and you just slam it on us and we should accept it. No. So there I said no. And then Brian said to me that if I would I consider sacrificing all our assets in the business let me rephrase that. He first asked me, what would we do if he sent me a 2.3 million rand bill? And I said, well, first, I don't agree with the amount. And secondly, if you had to do that and I'm at the end of my term, I'll probably just liquidate the business. Because that's pretty much what any businessman would do. But first of all, you'll have to prove that it's 2.3 million. According to my calculations, closer to 500,000. And that calculation, just as a matter of interest, was sent to them a while back. Anyhow, so let's get back to the point. Rightio, so he says to me, would I sacrifice? And I go, nope. I would first have to speak to my lawyers and see what we come up with. Because I said to him that I remember that I said I would liquidate. This was pretty much also the only person that I ever said this to. So note that might come up in a later discussion where I said that. Okay. We carry on with life. I get email from Brian asking me if I've made any progress with the attorneys. And I go, no, I haven't yet. Said there's other things I need to consider, because it's not only the legal side of it, there's also the staffing side of it. So I'll have to consider all of those things. So I get a phone call from Brian, chat to him, gives me advice on section 197 and all the rest. And guys, this is now towards the end of May. Okay, so now we get to where the timelines are important. End of May, Brian and I are in discussion. I'm telling him I'm referring it to the legal guys. Okay. Then comes a day. Get a phone call from Brian. And in the phone call, he wants to know how far I am with the lawyers. And I say, I'm still busy with it. And he says to me that he has made some headway with my mates in terms of taking the store over. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he says to me, no, I've been speaking to your friends. And I'm like, who's my friends? And he says, the crowd from, and he mentions a name, PTY Limited. And I go, I'm not sure who that is. And he says to me, no, man, it's the guys from Mozambique. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. And I put the phone down, thinking to myself, Brian said to me that he wants us to early exit if he can find a replacement that is not Mozambique, because the reason why he wants us to exit out of the site is a mismatch between Mozambique and the hotel. Now he's telling me that he's talking to Mozambique, and I'm going, the fuck? So I'm like, not a fuck, I want to see what happens here. Now guys, this is towards the end of May. The last week of May, I get an email from Brian, and it actually doesn't even help referring to it, but he just assumes that everything now belongs to him. We haven't signed anything, we haven't agreed to anything. He assumes, because in the email that he sends to me, it's very clear that he plans on throwing Mozambique under the bus, and he assumes that he now owns all of the assets. And I'm like, fuck off. I didn't even answer him on this email because that's how ridiculous it is. Until now, I'm still waiting for an agreement to exit. Okay, just as a matter of interest. Right, so now we fast forward to 2 June, which is a Monday, guys. 2 June. Keep it in mind. I'm not 100% sure where I was and what we were doing, but I think Phil and I were out together. I can't remember. But in any case, we get back home here like mid-afternoonish. And we get a call. That's right. Oh, we weren't together. Phil phones me and she says there's a problem. And I say, what's the problem? She says, no, she just received a call from one of our staff members at Mozambique Century City that somebody from head office walked into the store, took our card machines out, installed their card machines. That's now a machine where you pay your bill, the card machine. The point of sale system that we work on, so I've got an app that I can go onto and check all my figures and all my niceties there. I try and log into it, I'm logged out of it. So I cannot log in, Friedel can't log in. I'm like, okay, so somebody walked in, took our card machines out, put theirs in, changed the point of sale system, blocked us from accessing our computer systems that are in the store, took our staff one side and said to them that they are now operating this store on behalf of Mozambique. And my staff are in total shock and they've got no clue what to do. So I would still love to know exactly what the words were, because I wouldn't be surprised if they were told that they'll lose their jobs if they speak to us, because they were told that they are not allowed to speak to us. Now I go, okay, so we get this call. You can imagine my blood pressure goes this way. My fucking head starts rushing, and I am now in full Krugersdorp mode. So I'm almost heading out the door when I decide not to do this. And I thought, I'm not sure why, but today I'm not going to go there, because I'm just going to try and handle this differently. Right, end up... Who are the guys that took over the store? No. Mr. Richard Key from Mozambique head office is there, with another guy, Uhuru from Mozambique, is also there. And they told my staff they're not allowed to speak to us. And incidentally, Mrs. Gillian Key is also there. Okay. Keep that in mind. Now we're battling to figure out what happened here. How did anybody from Mozambique... Okay, wait, I'm now confusing the matter. Let me add this. Cheers. This happens in the afternoon of the 2nd of June. We receive a cancellation of our franchise agreement from the franchisor on the afternoon of the 2nd of June. Right. So Mozambique cancels our franchise agreement with immediate effect. Brian Singer sends me a message at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the afternoon saying that his GM at the hotel told him that our franchise agreement's been cancelled, and that Mozambique is now running the store, so that our agreement now needs to be brought forward to immediate effect. And I'm like, you've got no idea. There is literally no agreement here. The only agreement I can see that happens between you and Mr. Richard Key. That's the only agreement I could see happen. Anywho, I warned you about this, Mr. Singer. I did. Told you in a meeting, I said to you, be careful. Okay, so now I've got people standing in my store, and they are now trading this Mozambique as their Mozambique store. The question that we need to ask is, when the franchise agreement cancelled, does it allow a franchisor access to the premises, or the equipment, or the stock? It most certainly does not. No matter how that happened, unless the owner of the assets and the stock consent that you can continue that business, that's when you take ownership of it. You cannot, as a franchisor, at any given stage, walk into a franchised business where the assets don't belong to you and claim such assets. You cannot take the landlord's word for it that there's an agreement in place and think that that is acceptable. You cannot walk away from your responsibilities by cancelling a franchise agreement and then thinking that you can continue it as it is. Okay, so let's talk about the legal side of things and let's see where exactly Mozambique lied about this. Okay, guys, this episode is fairly longer than the rest, so I think I'll break it up in a part 1 or 2, but whatever, I think stick with me. It's going to get interesting. Okay, so let's recap. We've got a cancelled franchise agreement. We've got a person representing Mozambique standing in the premises trading the store. And we've got a landlord that sends a message saying, oh, I believe your franchise agreement was cancelled, so, hey, we need to bring forward the agreement that you and I have that is non-existent, and we'll base everything off of that. Okay. This is why I said, guys, it's layer upon layer, and this is where they think they're going to beat people. It's not, because not everybody is stupid enough to think that that is too complicated to beat, boys. Okay. The landlord cannot action anything on any assets of a business unless he has got a court order. A franchisor cannot do the same thing applies to franchisors. Let's do this, guys, as an example. There's the pencil. This is the product or the franchise. This pencil has got lead. That's what's used to make it right. There's the franchisor. There's the landlord. Nobody has got any right to the lead inside this pencil except for the pencil. It's as easy as that, guys. Okay, what do I mean by this? There's the lease agreement for the premises. I take, as the person that is operating the business, I take everything into the space that I need to operate this business. That is my money, my cost to put all of these things in there. In my instance, this means tables and chairs and knives and forks and plates and serviettes and stock and liquor and glasses and staff uniforms and menus and every single thing in between up to the fucking toilet paper, Richard Key, is what we put into that store to make it work. Okay. The franchisor only has the right to the name over the door. The landlord only has a right to the lease agreement over that, to nothing else in between. Now we sit and we go, how in the fuck did anybody think that this is going to work out? But this is where it gets interesting, guys. We now ask, because now we are wanting to be nice and not fight. We ask and we say, guys, how did this happen? This is in a letter from our lawyer, Mr. Pieter Brink, to Mozambique Franchise. Okay, I'm going to read you some. I'll highlight what's in these letters. Okay. Peter says to Nick from Mozambique, he says, we only want to deal with one specific aspect at current, being the referred and relied upon separation agreement with the landlord. This is believed to be a reference to a separation agreement between our client, which is now me, and the landlord, the Singer Group, or the Colosseum Hotel, or Mr. Brian Singer from Century City. Kindly provide us with the said separation agreement on or before, and then the dates. Okay. Why we asked about this separation agreement, guys, is we sent an email out to Nick saying, listen, dude, please explain to us what happened here. And Nick says back to us, the actions that Mozambique took by instilling themselves into this premises was based off of an agreement between myself and the landlord, which, if the agreement existed, would make complete sense, because then they would be looking after their brand and they would go, yes, great, there's an agreement between our franchisee and the landlord. We can step in and manage this business or do with it what we like. Okay. If that agreement exists, you as the franchisor needs to ask for it and say, listen, boy, Mr. Landlord, Mr. Singer, can you please give us this agreement that you are referring to? Please give us a copy of it, because we're going to need this for our records. And then it's obviously as easy as Mr. Brian Singer sending it on to them and saying, there it is, thank you very much, continue with what you want to do, take over the store and fucking run it for your own profits. Okay. Until such time, you cannot do that. So they say that they relied, this is what they say, guys, they relied on a separation agreement between us and the landlord. We then go back and say, hang 10, that separation agreement doesn't exist. And we call them on it and we say, or actually what they said was they're referring it onto the landlord. And we said, why would you want to refer it onto the landlord if you are sitting with this agreement? You sit with it. Then we realize they don't have it. So in an email we say to them, we don't think you have it. And then they reply back. Guys, I need to read this reply to you. Okay. Let me find where it is. Okay. Before they replied to it, this was our second attempt to get them to respond on something. Okay, so Peter says to them, they blatantly ignored our deadline. Alternatively, to provide us with the requested documentation you have previously based your emails upon, we record the following, initiating legal proceedings. On the 2nd of June 2025, you have unlawfully removed our client's credit card payment terminals, replaced their operating system, and assumed operational control of the premises. It was averred that your conduct is justified from a separation agreement concluded between our client and the landlord, the Colosseum Hotel. You've again stated and relied on this alleged separation agreement in your email of 25 June 2025 to our client. Our client is not in possession of such a separation agreement, and our instructions are that no such agreement exists, especially not authorizing you as the franchisor, the landlord, or any other party to assume control over our client's assets, systems, operations, and leasehold interests in the Century City premises. Furthermore, no written lease termination or cession agreement exists with the landlord, and no transfer or sale of business assets was consented to or executed by our client. Okay. Toe sê ons daar vir hulle dat hulle is heeltemal uitlyn uit. Dit sê ons daar. Okay. Guys, now what we need to bear in mind is that inside of this store, everything inside there belongs to me, belongs to my company. Okay. Friedel and I worked our little asses off to buy all of the cock that is standing there. Tables, chairs, Mr. Singer, even the fucking wrapping around your lift shaft. I paid for it, if you would remember. The tables, the chairs, every light fitting in that restaurant, the TVs, the sound systems, the knives and forks and training of the staff. I paid for it. Okay. Just reminding you. Okay, so that was on the 15th of July. We asked them about how did they come about. Then we receive this back, guys, and this is now where we need to start establishing lies, blatant lies, and blatant truths. Okay. So now we get to a stage where Mozambique realized they fucked up, because if you're not sitting with a signed agreement there, you fucked up. That's what it is. Okay. So I'm taking, they might have realized it. Their attorney, Mr. Thomas Mini, sends us an email to say that he refers to our letter. Point number 4 in his letter. In respect of your request for documentation relating to a separation agreement, we place on record that our client is not in possession of such documents and bases its stance on such an agreement solely on what was conveyed to our client by the landlord. Fuck, guys. Point number 4. That means, Mr. Prajen, I'm going to walk into your store at Pietermaritzburg or at the fucking waterfront, and I'm going to tell your staff they work for me now. And if you question me, I'm going to tell them, and I'm going to tell you that your landlord allowed me to do it. And if you ask me where the fuck did I see that, I'm going to tell you that I relied solely on what they told me. Because that's the respect, Mr. Wandile, that you have for your franchisees. That's the respect that you have for somebody. Hold on, let's do the math. That's the respect for somebody that has put more than 10 million rand into your pocket in the last 2, 3, 4 years. I can't even do the math properly. One store, 20 million rand turnover per year. Times, call it 4.5 fucking years. Times 5%. Sorry, I had to breathe there for a second. That's the respect, Brett, that you and your fellow shareholders have for franchisees. You take the landlord's word over your franchisee because you're upset with him because he's not buying from your distribution center, and because they call your bullshit. That's how you deal with him. Let's carry on. Okay. Same letter from Mr. Mini. Point number 5. In as far as our client avers that no agreement exists authorizing any party in as far as your client avers that no agreement exists authorizing any party to assume control over your client's assets, our client denies same in as far as such assets are not those of your client, and to the extent that our client is entitled to exercise its rights in terms of the franchise agreement concluded between your client and our client. Fuck, now you want to go further and tell me that the assets inside the building are not mine. That's what they say there, is that the assets are not mine. Okay. And that's why they took action, or that's why they could fucking the terms of the franchise agreement, the one that they cancelled. Okay, that's point 7. Then point 8. Let's listen to the same letter. Our client has no knowledge of which assets within the premises of the landlord belong to your client, and therefore the issue of ownership and or retention rights to assets must be addressed by the landlord. Point 5, you say you don't know. Point 8, you go, fuck. Point 5, you say it's not my assets. Point 8, you go, fuck, we don't know whose assets they are. Let me tell you whose they are, because you guys think that I'm fucking stupid. Okay. Brett, you will recall that you personally, Mr. CEO of Mozambique, when the store opened up, who brought the furniture from Belito that Gavin made to my store? Who brought the wooden artwork that I had made in Ballito? Who brought it to my store? Who loaded the van with stock that you brought on the first time that you came to the store? Who did you see paying for these bills when you were there? When you had to go and pick up a few things for the store the day before we opened? Who paid for it? Can you remember? I did. You know it. So how can you say you don't know whose stuff it is? Let's go as recently as the Monday morning that you walked into my store and took over my store. Okay. On that same Monday, the 2nd of June, we paid for stock to be delivered from Mozambique Distribution. We placed the order. We paid for the order because you fuckers brought my account to I have to pay before you deliver. Who paid for that stock? And to who did you deliver it on the 3rd of June? To Mr. Richard Key standing in the store there. My stock that I paid for. So how can you say there that you don't know whose stock it was? Okay. That's point one. Now we go back. This was now Mr. Mini telling us that this is the situation there. Mozambique acted solely on the landlord's word. No written agreement seen. Cool. They deny they deny that they know who owns what inside the store. 2 lies, 1 letter. Okay, let's go to the next one. It gets better. It gets better, guys. So we now do a bit of homework. We now do homework. Because we're now trying to find out what happened here now. I just want to, this is funny. Just seeing it here. Okay, so let me give you one thing why they cancelled my franchise agreement. Due to numerous and persistent breaches of the terms and conditions of the franchise agreement by the franchisee, our client elected to terminate the franchise agreement. Now bear in mind, the person that does these audits on our stores, or the breaches, what they're talking about, basically boils down to how we operate our stores. And the person that writes these evaluations is Mr. Richard Key. Okay, just keep that in mind again. Okay, guys, and this is now where it's going to get fucking interesting. This is where the kicker sits in this whole thing, right? So now we figured out two places. But this, guys, this is the kicker, right? We sit here and we think to ourselves that Mozambique would not trade a store. They are a bit risk adverse when it comes to trading stores. Interesting for a franchisor, I would say, but in any case, okay. I think most of them work that way. It somehow comes, we now thinking, but hold on. Richard is standing inside the store, and his wife's in the store as well. But now you need to now just bear with me. The week before the 2nd of June, so that would have been the week of where are we? That would have been the week somewhere around, let's say 27th, 28th of May, right? A few days before the 2nd of June. We see a notice on our marketing things going out that Mozambique N1 City has closed down. Thanks for the support, happy days, they're closing down. Okay. Owners of that store, Richard and Gillian Key. Right. So they closed down. Richard is an employee of head office. He's the one that does all the oversights of my stores. 2nd of June rocks up. He pitches up with his wife, takes over my store. And Mozambique says to us they did this based on the landlord's word. And I go, who's running where is the profits going? Because we now need to consider a few things here. There's a common rule in South Africa, Mr. Key, that says if you have not purchased anything, if you did not purchase this pen, it does not belong to you. Simple as that. You cannot sell it for profit and put it into your own pocket, Richard and Gillian. If you did not pay for it, you cannot put it into your own pocket. So I sent a letter to you guys. I don't know if you remember this. This was reaching out again, trying to be nice, me. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Key, we refer to your recent and ongoing involvement in the unlawful takeover and operation of the premises formerly occupied by Silvertree 805 Pty Limited, trading as Mozambique Century City. You are formally placed on notice that, at the time of your takeover, no separation agreement existed between ourselves and Mozambique Franchising or the landlord for the transfer or surrender of our business. You entered the premises, accessed business operations and began trading without lawful authority or court order. Most seriously, you disposed of stock and other assets which were legally the property of Silvertree 805 Pty Limited, without our consent, without compensation, and without due process. Your actions constitute unlawful interference with our property rights and business operations, unjust enrichment at our expense, potential criminal conduct including but not limited to theft, receiving and selling property belonging to another, participating in unlawful appropriation of business assets. We reserve our rights to pursue a civil claim against you in your business and personal capacity. I am coming. Institute criminal proceedings against you should any further evidence of appropriation, conversion, or sale of our property come to light. Should you wish to avoid further escalation, you are invited to disclose full details of all business income earned from the date of takeover, confirm whether you received any instruction or mandate from Mozambique Franchising or the landlord to act in this manner, CIPC registration documents of the entity you are trading the business under. Okay. That letter was directed to Richard and Gillian Key. The response that we received back, guys, let's get to that. This is the response from Mr. Thomas Mini. As previously indicated, we act on behalf of Mozambique Franchise Pty Limited. It, however, appears that writer has erroneously overestimated that any prudent attorney dealing with litigating matters would then know that such representation by necessity also includes the employees of Mozambique Franchise Pty Limited. So, for purposes of clarity and in light of the fact that your Mr. Brink has sent correspondence to employees of our client, knowing that our client is represented by our office, we kindly request that all future correspondence be directed to our office. Mr. Mini, sorry, I don't know you, I've never met you, but what the fuck did you try and say there? Okay. Erroneously fucking over what? Okay, but we'll get back to that erroneously what's. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to get upset with you. You only act on what they tell you. Fuck. Ask them to be more open about their business. Okay, so let's say I need to continue reading this. With reference to the contents of your letter dated 24 July 2025, we note the various threats for further action, including criminal charges. Your client is at liberty to lay such charges with the SAPS, as these threats are without merit and have even less chances of success. At the very least, writer submits that the charge sheet would make for rather interesting reading. This is a civil matter. Mr. Mini, it becomes a criminal matter when you sell things that do not belong to you and you put the money into your own bank account. It does become criminal, sir. As far as our client stance, including its employees, were highlighted. Guys, check here. I'm not talking shit. Look there. You see it. Check. It's highlighted. Shouting at us. Okay, so including its employees. Related to this matter is concerned, we have already set out same in previous correspondence, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Then the next correspondence we received from Mr. Mini is to say that his clients will give him new instructions, and then they came back and said, we now need to do what we need to do. Okay, so let me tell you what I did. Fuck. Mr. Key, this number might come to haunt you for the rest of your life. I'm not quite sure yet. But let's start with, I just want to explain something to Mr. Mini. Mr. Mini, when your client says that Richard and Gillian Key are solely their employees and acting as their employees in that Mozambique Century City branch, please ask them to give you the business details and the bank account number where the funds go into. Remember the same one we asked them for, because that will ultimately prove where the money goes to. Can I tell you what it is? It's a company called Time for Us Pty Limited. Directors Richard and Gillian Key. Bank account Time for Us Pty Limited. So that stock that you sold, Mr. Richard Key, that was mine, the money went into your bank account. You need to remember this number going forward. I warned you. CAS 522/8/2025. Okay. And with that, there's one last thing I need to talk about. I think out of this episode, you get an idea of what we were dealing with. Okay. My call is for the public to start speaking up. If you are a franchisee of a different brand and you've been done in, chat to me. Retail, restaurant, no matter what. I've owned a few franchises in my life, and I've seen where these things happen. Guys, this is the reality. We are now dealing with a court case, plus we're dealing with a SAPS case, because people think they can just do what they like. That's not fair. I ask you guys again, Prajen, Ashley, Wandile, Brett, would you like it if somebody did this to you? Prajen, what would your wife and kids say if this happened to you? We're still going to get to Blouberg. We're still going to talk about that. Today it's sore because you guys today advertised the new store opening. It burns inside here because of you guys. And it's fine. I'm going to use this burn to my own advantage. So, here where I'm sitting. I'm watching you guys and I'm coming. Richard, I'm not dead yet. Gillian, I'm not dead yet. There's an old saying in Afrikaans that goes, jy kan nie met 'n ander man se kalvers ploeg nie. It doesn't work that way. It's my hard work, my wife's hard work, my family sacrifices, my staff sacrifices. It's us that business belongs to. It's us that the benefit of that business belongs to. Not you, Mr. Richard and Mrs. Gillian Key, that decided that you can walk into my store and just take it over. It's not Christmas yet. Nothing is for free.